Hey everyone, for my semester project, I'm going to be doing a retrospective on Martin Heidegger. I'm going to be talking about three of his most important works, analyzing some of the key concepts, and applying some of his philosophies to his problematic history. So Heidegger was a very well celebrated philosopher. His writings were super influential to our just understanding of knowledge and philosophy in general. He was heavily interested in the natural world, nature, being, and he was celebrated for his conceptualization of existence, freedom, and the self. He had a very problematic past, which has made people call into question some of the validity of his works. But we'll get into that later. And he also had a massive forehead, as you can see from the picture right here. Um, I've been studying Heidegger for the past 2 weeks and researching him, and no one's really brought this up. But I wanted to put this on the slide so you guys could just see the true scope of how large it was. I'm covering it right now on the screen, and it takes up just about my whole hand. So with that, we'll get into his first work, Being in Time, one of his earliest writings, and it was heavily focused on the fundamental idea of existence and what it means to be. So, being is the ability to reflect on one's own existence, just the act of being able to ask ourselves the question of what is being and like why am I here? The ability for us to intellectualize that and ask those questions is what makes us able to be. So I put a tree never questions being a tree because a tree is alive, it is not being. So he categorizes the aspects of being in these right here. So we have the sign, which is being there, which is his idea of just authentically being able to question your own existence. And there's care, which is how we care about different things in the natural world, being with others, and thrownness. Thrownness is basically all of the different conditions that we can be born into, whether they're physical conditions, whether they're locational positions, just the state in which we are thrown into the world is a part of our being as well. And he uses authenticity and inauthenticity to qualify what our or to evaluate our existence, pretty much. So living authentically is living within your Dasein, which is your ability to be contemplative and reflect on your existence and being alive. And living inauthentically is basically just socially conforming to the situation that you are in, the systems that are in place without questioning anything or reflecting. And the best way to, I think, understand this concept is his idea of ready to hand versus present at hand. So with ready to hand, he's talking about tools in which we don't consider the work done to create the tools while using tools. We simply partake in the process that the tools allow, and in doing this, we're not able to fully grasp the interconnectedness of things in the world. So with a hammer and a nail, we are interested in the process of hammering the nail because it's what we're doing in the present moment, but we're not deconstructing all of the things that took place that led to the nail being created, the metal, and the hammer being created, which is a way of not reflecting on our Dasein, and it inhibits us from truly experiencing the interconnectedness of things in the world. A lot of people have used that concept to conceptualize, separating the workers from the means of production and other philosophical concepts that have come from this idea. After that, we have the essence of truth. So Heidegger challenges the traditional understanding of truth, in which he calls the correspondence theory, where freedom in the traditional sense is correspondence of knowledge to the matter, which basically means that It is the relation of two things. It's basically the understood thing of how two things relate to each other with respect to science, math, and logic. And this traditional understanding of truth is very static and matter of fact, where Heidegger believes that truth is a process of unconcealment of concealed things. And to make that make sense, I would say that um, a being that has an openness and a caring for the world will be able to unconceal things that are concealed, which leads to the truth. Meaning that caring is basically a part of truth seeking that Heidegger thinks is unrecognized. In order to figure out whether the world is round or whether 2 plus 2 makes 4, one has to first care in the first place. So that's essential to his idea of the essence of truth, as is an openness to the world, because if you're not open to the natural world and reflective on the natural world, then you cannot care about the natural world enough to unconceal the truth. So this constant balance of unconcealing and concealing is what the natural state of existence is supposed to be in this work. Basically, we're constantly unconcealing and concealing things, and they need each other to exist. The question concerning technology. This was the first work of Heidegger's that I read from this class, and it really set me down this path to understand more of his works. I'm not going to talk too much about it because we've already talked about it in class before, but I wanted to talk about in framing because I think it's going to relate to some of the historical things in his past. Basically, in framing is a way that technology reveals the world to us. It is a way that our perception is created, or our perception is limited by this process of enframing, in which we don't see the natural world as something as having a spiritual or ecological value. Rather, the natural world has been enframed to become a standing reserve, in which it is a means for resources to be extracted, optimized, and used. We've already used the example of the river, and how the river is not just a river anymore, something to be looked at in awe and appreciated naturally. It's meant as a source to create hydroelectrical power, recreation, this, that, and the other, etc. So I think inframing is a really important part of the question concerning technology. It's an important part of understanding the essence of technology, which is going to bring us to Heidegger's complicated past. So Heidegger was a German nationalist who rejected the idea of liberal democratic values as they were understood at the time. He wanted a strong socialist front, and when Hitler came to power in World War II, he joined the Nazi Party. It was then when he became the rector or the head of education for one of Germany's top universities at the time, and his works were praised by Hitler. And he did a lot of anti Semitic speeches and talks while he was at that university. Uh, while World War II was going on, he also created the Black Notebooks, which was a series of books that talked about the state of war, the state of the war in the world. And in here, he had a lot of anti Semitic writings that were not necessarily genocidal in the way that Hitler was, but he did have a lot of anti Semitic sentiments within the book, such as he wrote, Jews are incapable of authentically caring and knowing, which, as we know from his previous works, he believes caring and knowing authentically to be very valuable and an important part of being. So, yeah, he had a very problematic past in that sense, but I wanted to use the concept of enframing to kind of challenge Heidegger. So, we have to keep in mind that the question concerning technology was written decades after World War II. But I think by knowing that, we can kind of think of, understand where his concept of enframing came from. If he saw firsthand the tragedies of World War II and saw the Jews being used as a standing reserve, being used as resources that were um, resources to be utilized, used, and exploited, then we can kind of see where this idea comes from. He probably saw this within nature as well, but I think that it's worthwhile for us to look at it like this, and it kind of is, obviously hypocritical in the sense that he was aligning himself with people who were using humans as a standing reserve, which is certainly a part of nature. I mean, human nature. So it would go against his own philosophies, but I think it's important to look at it through there. And how did this affect his legacy? Well, I was contemplating whether or not this tarnishes the legacy of his previous works, and I've come to the conclusion that his previous works were they were so important and influential, and I think they stand alone in their own right. He had important works before his association with the Nazi Party and after. Um, that being said, he distanced himself from the Nazi Party after World War II, but he never apologized. But he also never wrote about it again. Um, so I do not think that it tarnishes his works in the past. They're still worth analyzing and reading, but it does tarnish our relationships to the works. And with that being said, that's it. Um, Thank you guys for bearing with me on my attempt to explain these very complicated concepts in a small amount of time. And I hope you guys have a good Christmas break.